welcome to another episode, first episode of Psych Talk, which is the Fiji Psychological Society official podcast. And with us in our virtual studio today, we are thankful to have a real pioneer in our industry. She's she's one of the actual pioneering members of the Fiji Psychological Society. She's done a lot of amazing work with the communities that she's been involved in. She's a community health psychologist by profession, and she's also dipped in academic writing and as well as writing as well. Some of her work includes violence against children in Fiji, where she co-authored and she researched it. And she also studied on the basic psychology in Fiji, which was published then. We're grateful to have us with her in studio today. And yes, without further ado, we have Ofa Swann. Yeah, Ofa Swann, we're really thankful to have you here today. And I think this is a real good opportunity for our viewers to get to see the work that you take. Thank you, Ofa, for being here.
Lisa, Malo, thank you very much for the invitation, Shone. I'm so grateful for this opportunity just to see what I can do and share with you. I'm looking forward to the next how many minutes we have together.
Yeah, it's veterans. It's always for a lot of us that did start off with the FPSS. It was always it was always so comforting to have you there because we were at first when we first joined, it was quite difficult for us, seeing all of you that was so experienced there, and for us coming in as students, it was frightening, but at the same time, we realized it was such a great opportunity. And yeah, we're just really thankful for all the things that you've helped us with, especially in terms of teaching us about the work.
Oh, wow. But Chone, that's our role as custodians of our profession. That's what we're here for, to be there for you, have your back, so to speak. And that's another reason why Galen and I and Roland got together and co-founded this, and with the help of some of our own members. There are a few original members still with us. And you now, look at you being our president. That's just wonderful. These are the things we envisaged would happen and unfold for all of the members of our society. And I'll always play that role while God gives me life and breath to look out for our young people. Otherwise, there's no point in becoming educated in whatever field we're in if we don't pass the legacy on by mentoring, coaching, and looking out for those who are coming from behind and setting, standards, which is where we're at right now with our registration process. And hopefully, God willing, we'll have the Attorney General see us soon so that we can formalize the process. We'd like to be an independent body so that we can self-regulate. We need that. And now that we've been in operation for 3-4 years, I think, it's timely. It's timely that we become the licensing body for all practicing psychologists. Yeah. And we're so grateful for young people like yourselves. And there are a few of you that are so happy and willing to take up the role and continue the society in a leadership role. And that's important.
Yeah, I can't, I couldn't agree with you more in, just how the vision came to be, because like having this as a united front, it's really, I feel like this would sort of be the offspring of what your initial vision was. And because it's really good that we're trying to work off the foundation that you and Dr. Roland and Dr. Galen built, and having just all of us practitioners hold hands together and try to move forward. That's I feel like we could always just draw inspiration from the work that you.
I'm just thinking about when I came into the field, as you mentioned earlier. I was wondering, I had to look for ways for someone to help me so that I could spread my wings, so to speak. And I went towards the medical profession and worked over at the super private hospital.
Right.
And then after that, I reached out to human synergistics with the psychologists there, the 2 psychologists, and did my 1,000 hours through corporate organization in Papua New Guinea. This is why I think I'm so passionate taking care of all of you, because my journey was so different when I became a graduate in Psych. There wasn't really the support that I thought would be there. And yes, we were all, I suppose, trying to find our way because it's a fairly new profession in Fiji.
Yes, it is. It is.
And
Yeah,
and so I'm
yeah,
just, we need to, all the stuff that happened to me, I don't want to happen to the young now graduate in our profession. I want to always be here for each one of you who need help anyway. And even if I don't know, I'll help you to find it. Answer to whatever it is you're looking for. It's that feeling that gives you comfort that says, hey, if you're a young intern, you're out there in the field, who do I turn to that can give me some help? And I found that. And that's why this society, I made sure when I joined up with the other 2 that we would make this happen for all of you that are coming. Imagine, Chone, if we didn't have this society and you were doing what you're doing and the rest of the crew, all of our other practitioners, where would they go?
exactly. Yeah, I think that what a lot of us younger practitioners were really looking forward to, because back when we were say in our first year, and we there was never really any sort of direction in terms of where we were supposed to go. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. And whether we would get employment.
Mhm.
And that's something else, that I am really keen on creating pathways for our young interns to use their psych skill, because you can use your psychology skills in every area. It's just knowing where, how, and why. I'm doing a whole range of different types of psychology work. And I'm just thinking, holy Toledo, I never even thought I'd get to this place. But it's exciting, it's interesting. And if I don't know anything, I go look for the answers or I talk to someone. And we have that now. We can do that now. We can talk to each other. And I thank God for that.
Yes, and I think this platform, it's a real great way for our viewers to be able to see just the amount of passion and just the type of drive that you have towards our profession. And for those of us that, for our viewers, Madam Ofa, she's really been that pillar for a lot of us younger
Yes,
practitioners, and
thank you,
we're really
Johnny.
thankful.
I think what happens in psychology, and this is something that just we have to model the behavior that we want to see in others. Because if
Right.
we don't, can't preach it unless we behave it. And because we're the
Exactly, yeah.
medicine, I believe we're the medicine for a lot of ills, that we really have to behave it and think it and feel it. That, to me, that's what psychology is about. Our culture.
And it's interesting that you bring up culture, and because you were really, at the time that you did take this up, and at the time that you started to make a name for yourself, that it wasn't really a topic that people really discussed. The topic of mental health and psychology. How did your journey start in terms of in terms of this whole field that you're in? Like, how did
Oh,
the offer of today actually initially start?
there's a whole lot of, how should I say, there's play into where I'm
Mm.
history from my family, my journey through the various stages of my life, my developmental stages. And I got to a place, I remember talking to Gayleen about this, and I said, I just want to do counseling. That's all I'm interested in. And there was at that time a counseling program which was robust, and it had from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. And all it was lacking was the supervision, the supervisory part of counseling. And then I thought, this is interesting, because prior to that, I'd done business, I'd done human resources, I'd gone into sort of like, not really interested, but I wanted to know.
Right.
And my background was such, Chonette, I had to work because I came from a very large family, and being a girl, and this is where we always feel so blessed to help my parents, because I had all these younger siblings who needed to go to school. So you see, it's that Fijian thing, but we were doing it in Australia.
Right.
At a very young age, and I was thinking, wow, I've gone full circle, come back home, and I also needed to put to rest a whole lot of stuff that happened to me growing up. Had to process it and find peace, and make my peace with a lot of those demons from the past. And I thank God that I was able to do that. You do it by the people you meet and those who come into your life. And I'm at a stage in my life now where I'm very comfortable inside my skin. And to enable you to do that, you need to process a lot. Quite traumatic, I might add. Because think about it, you're 16 years old and you're taken out of this culture and you're put into this other culture where there's a lot of stuff that I'd never struck. Discrimination, racial prejudice, all of that stuff, until I went to Australia. It teaches you a whole lot of things. And Psych helps you. Psych helped me to understand my parents and why they did the things they did. Because a lot of us carry questions that never got answered. But when you do psychology, you're more forgiving and more understanding, because you think of they were. And I'm in a really good place now when people misbehave or do something, I always sit and say, there's a reason for it. Person's acting out something. They have something's going on, but they just don't know to process it. That's where we come into. We help them find a way. And I've done that with all my siblings, even though we're not supposed to work with our relatives and our friends. And I don't believe that. As a Fijian woman, I don't believe. I believe, a lot of stuff is written by the Western world. In my culture, I'm supposed to be helping my people with my education. And if I can't do that, what's the point of me getting educated?
Wow, that's so beautifully put. I can't. I mean, I can only imagine all the difficulties that you faced, but to see how far you've come, it's really something inspirational for a lot of us, And I just wanted to talk about the whole reflective nature of our profession. Yeah, it's really something, because I too had a similar a similar stance towards this field. It was really having that whole reflective process. It allowed me to be able to answer questions that I had about myself, and which is why I'm really grateful about pursuing this field in the first place.
Yeah, I think, that we're teaching people, showing others who don't understand psychology, there is a humanistic approach in the human way, being able to look at ourselves, find out why and what, how, and whatever we look like to ourselves, not to anybody else, ourselves. And the parts that we don't like, or we are fearful of, or we distrust, or we hate, they're the part that's going to make us better people in the future. So we need to address those. And that to me is a vital component. When you talk about coping strategies and emotive avoidant coping strategy, as in denial, behavioral disengagement, those aspects, they can make you, if you continue to use those approaches, they take away the very essence of your being.
So in order to become your true version of yourself, you really need to sort of deal and work through these things. Yeah.
Absolutely true. And not only with yourself, but if you're going to link up with another person, two of you need to journey together, doing the
Right.
same thing or behavior. It's to say, oh, this is me. This is how I am at this time. You accept me as I am, or you don't. This is how I am. You do it in a respectful, kind, compassionate, and forgiving way. Too often we go into a relationship expecting so, and we get disappointed, and it's not the fault of the other person. You have to look within your own self. What did you expect?
Right. Yeah, and that's it's such a key point because I think a lot of why relationships do break down is because of that.
I tell you, I know.
Yeah.
Son, this is my third marriage. This is my third husband. And
Right.
I aim to keep him. He's the longest I've been married to. And I'm so grateful for him in my life. And it's weird, I actually found the stuff I was looking for. And it's that peacefulness. He's still an individual. I'm an individual. And yet we come together and we strengthen, and in those parts of us, there I go, talking about complementarity, but parts of us that he strengthens that I don't have, and vice versa. Being an indigenous Fijian man, Chone, that's the thing that I always find, interesting, in the sense where people sometimes say, oh, he's Fijian or she's Fijian. We're the same. It's just how we were programmed from the very beginning and the models that we had around us. You can change that model. We all have that power for change. It's right here.
Right.
And it's our voice. And we work together in this marriage, in this relationship, this friendship we have. And it's filled with a whole lot of respect. And especially now that we're both in our, how should I say, is it twilight or sunset?
Oh, it's the twilight.
Sunset years, but it's just a real joy for me to have this companion. Doesn't matter. Whatever he is, that's who he is. I love him anyway. But I've understood him too because of where he was brought up. His story, many of our Fijian men and women, these stories that are really sad.
Yeah.
And as I look at, with my study, my dissertation, and looking at the dark traits, it makes you understand more what our history, our Fijian culture history, filled with violence. And we're trying to mitigate it with our Christian beliefs. You have to address it.
Right. Now, for our viewers, Madam Ofa, she's writing her dissertation right now, and her dissertation is on the dark parts, yeah?
Yeah, it's on the dark traits.
Right,
Chune,
dark traits.
It's about relationships. It's ideal concepts. What is it we look for in people? What characteristics do we look for in another person? Access to this person. How do we select this person? The influence of these three factors is the dark traits.
Right.
And
for
it's
our
a
viewers back
personality.
home, yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
Just for our viewers back home, how would you sort of describe what the dark traits are to someone that would just be reading your paper for the first time?
There are the dark traits that I'm focusing on are narcissism, Machiavellism, and psychopathy. Jonathan, I think he's in Western Australia, is one of the scientists who introduced the dark traits. And it's only fairly new. And when I say fairly new, I'm saying in the last 15 years.
Oh, okay. So it's really new.
Yeah, and Moshe Gun from Israel is another gentleman. These two, they introduced these personality traits because they found the behavior of people was evolving and changing. And you know how we have the ocean, the big 5 personality traits, which everybody gets assessed on. Openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, extroversion, and neuroticism. Whereas you've got neuroticism there, which is somewhat similar, sort of bordering on the 5 traits. Don't quote me though. And I'm just thinking, these other 3, because if you look at it, and I'm starting to see some links between the traits and intimate violence, trait, domestic violence, dark traits, coup mentality. And as they say, you will find traits in politicians, military, and law.
Wow.
I mean, I was blown away by that. And I thought, no wonder I didn't go back to being a politician. But very little remorse, very little empathy. There's a slogan that goes with these dark traits. I rather get ahead rather than get along.
Oh, okay. Do you think that these dark traits it's deep within every person, or do you think that's only a certain amount of people or certain temperaments and personality types would be more accustomed to having dark traits?
Based on my knowledge and the literature that I've read, it's similar to all personality types, the big 5. However, depending on where we come from, because they say there's a sociocultural influence.
Right.
There could be a stronger, or as when we talk about dark traits, darker personality. But I always feel, truly, Johnny, it's a matter of choice. If it's in you, that could be a binary where you either, go high or low, your choice at a given time. For example, being narcissistic, being entitled. It's all about me. There again, I think, generally, I like to think people kind, trustworthy. However, there again, it's a matter of choice. If you choose to be a narcissist or a psychopathic or a Machiavellianistic, to me is a choice. Just like big 5 personality. One thing I do know is that when couples get together, they generally get drawn to similarities, more so than complementarity.
Oh, okay.
Birds of a feather flock together.
Right.
So if you have some level of narcissism, you will also attract some level of narcissism in the other person.
Right.
And I might tell you that the dark traits are thriving and well in Fiji.
I was just gonna ask you about that. So in
Based
terms of
on
you,
my research and on the samples, yes.
yes. So in your assessments of your field studies and of your clinical work as well, given the amount of experience that you have with dark traits, do you think that there's a higher percentage now as compared to before, or was this always an issue?
I believe it was always an issue, Chune. I think we suppressed it a lot and didn't know what it looked like. When you look at the rate of our domestic violence, it's 60%.
Yeah.
The country's very, and it may have had something to do with the oppression of the last 16 years. Oh, still remains to be seen. But I believe it's been there. When I think about growing up, there was a lot of domestic violence around us growing. That's going back over 60 years, John. So it's sometimes I get so puzzled because we always say we're Christians, believe in God. If that's the case, why does the dark trait thrive in our
I was, you know, I wanted to ask because I do see that there is still the issue of domestic violence, and it's still very rampant with a lot of our, especially with our semi-urban areas and but they also do exist within urban areas as well, and in our rural communities. Now, be- from your research, do you feel that uh, culture was also like a huge part of it as well? The
Okay.
culture of silence?
I need to clarify something, Chune. I
Right,
didn't look at domestic violence in my research.
right.
I'm just knowing by my reading and the literature that's out there, there are links. And
Mhm.
it's getting me to go in that direction as well, because I would like to study this, have a
Right.
look at that, because I feel that even though we have NGOs and other bodies that are addressing this issue, we're not getting to the root of it. And one way we can get to the root of it is this approach through research in the sense of from a psychological perspective. You start, assessing people and say, okay, this is in your assessment where there is your personality type says high Machiavellism or your high narcissism. We need to prescribe and give you a course of action and help you with intervention. Both of you know and give you situations and scenarios where this can be triggered. Because generally, I think a lot of this come out when you have alcohol or substance use.
Does
These are just things that I'm thinking about. I don't have any data except for what the domestic violence situation is in Fiji this time. And I believe the churches, the pastors, those who are in counseling, pastor, Christian counselors, can play a big role. We can take their message to go into the community and find that rather than preaching it, I'm sorry, I don't agree. You have to get your wife to obey you, your husband to obey you, and you use violence. There's always an alternative.
yeah, and you could really see it at during the COVID-19 pandemic, yeah, because violence was there was really an all-time high in terms of domestic violence cases,
Yes,
and
it was because they had to be together.
right,
People had to
right,
be together in conditions that weren't normal. And
yeah,
spending time together with another human being that you really have not addressed many of the issues. You've gone into denial, behavioral disengagement, you bury it, and you think it'll go away. It doesn't go away. This is what I'm saying. I think I referred to it earlier. It's the hard stuff. You got to do the hard stuff if you want to have a good relationship. And the way to do that is to talk about it. Address it. I know it's not comfortable, but you address it. Otherwise, situations like COVID exacerbated, magnified all the flaws in the relationship. And instead of using the time that COVID gave you for being together and sitting down and saying, okay, the relationship hasn't been working for these reasons, can we talk about it? We just drew and isolated ourselves even more. And then we got aggressive, angry. Anger is such a toxic emotion. Do not go down. And if you can model it, it's a toxic emotion buried deep inside us. And we bring it out when you least expect it and you expect it. When you talk about self-care, when you're angry, the best thing to do is go running and walking, get it out into the universe. Many of us marry. We lash out the ones who love us the most. And children, children in the homes think that that's normal. Mom and dad fight. Or brothers or sisters. Normal. There's nothing normal about hurt, hate, and violence and anger. No.
And is in terms of the dark traits, and because you did bring up just now, you brought up a real good point about how children see violence in the household. Do you think that maybe dark traits are sort of how seeds are planted whenever they see these things growing up? And do you think that that cycle of violence, the whole generational violence and generational trauma, just reliving itself in different lifetimes, do you think that that is also an issue as well? Like, do you think those things are connected?
Surely we can relate to the Bogota Bandura's
Right.
experiment.
Right.
That in itself is intergenerational. It continues. And social media reinforcing the message of violence. And it does become intergenerational. I wouldn't even be surprised. I mean, I'm not going to go that. Sometimes I just get the feeling. Genetics.
Well,
With alcohol. With finding out things about alcohol when women drink alcohol, carrying the baby in their womb, all this other stuff. I mean, that's just so far in. Who's to say it isn't?
right.
And that could be the same with violence and anger. If it's could be in your DNA. Hey, you and I talking about something. We'll have somebody go research it.
Yeah. Hopefully one of our viewers would probably research it.
Hey, you're right, Johnny. I mean, let's just say that it isn't, because it just seemed to be so much of it in our society.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I always, when I see young people and they're having a good time, it looks really great and they're funny, having a whale of a time. And, in the back of my mind, I look at them and I think, how long is this going to last before you start to hurt each other?
Mm.
Sad.
And it is sad. It is very sad. Yeah.
Because of
And-
the drink, because of the party, you lose your inhibitions and you forget. You cross the
Right.
line.
Okay.
Someone gets raped. Something happens.
Yeah.
You just can't go out and have good, decent fun and go
And-
home safe.
Yeah. And just in saying that, our thoughts and our prayers go out to the Tuiwana family who had their son just recently, who was a victim of a brawl down. And it's really sad to see these things these things happen. So
Oh,
on behalf of
sorry.
on behalf of the Psych Talk team and the Fiji Psychological Society, we do send our condolences, and our thoughts are with the Diwana family at this time. And yeah, it's just really sad.
Oh my
That
goodness. Where, Chone?
from the reports I saw that it happened outside the night spot.
In
Yeah,
Suva?
in Suva. Yeah,
Okay,
in
because I'm
Suva.
thinking you're in Perth. It happened in Perth. I beg
Oh
your
no. Yeah, I read it. I read it online, and
Gee.
yeah, it's really sad. It's really sad, and I can't imagine what their family is going through right now. But if they ever do come across this message, if you need help, please reach out.
Yes,
Oh yeah,
yes.
we here
And that's the other
if you need
thing,
anything.
Chone, community work. I do a lot of that.
Right.
Funny, we have a rate, a fair rate charge because all of us need some form of livelihood. But I just find for the last year, most of my work has been FOC.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we've also I also had the same issues as well, but I was still back in Nandi. So a lot of my cases outside of my work school was really FOC free of charge. So uh,
And it's, I don't mind that at all. I think we
right.
should really work at one arm of the side community doing FOC work throughout the year.
Yeah,
And we look for funding in other ways.
right.
Going
Yeah,
back to the side,
that could be like a project that we could do. Yeah.
the side society. Yeah.
Mm. Uh, yeah, I was just drawing back to your work in your communities, because you have a lot of extensive work as well as in drafting up leadership programs, right? And
Right.
yeah, how was that experience, especially when you were working in local communities? Was it more difficult than you expected, or was it an easy transition working with a lot of our grassroots areas?
Chune, let me say this. In that particular field, it was through business communities, right? Through
Right,
companies that was preparing their management in leadership roles.
right.
Yeah. And as far as the community were concerned, when I'm thinking all the way back to the early days, was taking Toastmasters, getting people to
Oh,
communicate, to learn to
okay.
communicate effectively, which is one of the most important factors in being a good leader, to be able to communicate, also to listen. And in our work as psychologists, we look at a lot of non-verbal behavior, cues that are sent to us, how we pick up things. Because when you're in a counseling session, you're sort of like peeling an onion,
Right,
layers after layer to get to the real issue. Generally, you won't find people come to you with the issue straight off the bat. It's usually after a couple of visits they need to really know what's going on. But just getting back to
right,
leadership.
right,
Leadership. It was never difficult for me because I've always been in the training arena. I first
right.
set up early 90s. Jobs Fiji was in the recruit and training arena. And there was always trying to find people the right fit into the job.
Right.
Put it, and then out of that came the courses for leadership. So yeah, Toastmasters was one of the first things that we adopted to help people in the community who are going into leadership to be communicating effectively.
Right. Because that's really like a part where some people with some types of personality are really good at. They're really good at communicating, but then there are others which I mean, I know I'm really just generalizing here, but I could be wrong. But that's always been a very hard issue, especially with us as Fijians, to be able
That's
to
right.
communicate. Yeah, to be able to communicate what exactly you're feeling, and how your emotions, what emotions you're going through. Because I remember as a kid, growing up, it was always so much harder for me to be able to say what I was feeling, and it was, and and sometimes I felt like I was really alone with my feelings at that time. Whenever I went through such a hard time, or whenever I disagreed with something, I didn't know how to actually communicate it, and I thought that it was just, I thought that it was an individual problem. But then, as I grew older, I sort of understood that a lot of people do have issue as well.
That's very
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
It starts at the home, and it's the parents who promote it. I
right,
have 5 grandsons, and I talk to the parents. Constantly talk to my son and my namesake and say, please make sure you open pathway. Children now are so advanced in the use of technology. Help them, talk to them, show them. Don't dismiss. This way, they'll be better human beings later on as adults,
right.
better adults, because they can communicate. That's something, in our culture, it was always be quiet, be seen, but never heard.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was, yeah.
And that I'm so glad to see it's changing. I'm sure you, when you have your babies, you will bring the change. And I see that happening now in the young people around me with children, that they have started to bring change with their children. Because we
Right,
have to break the cycle of those poor behaviors. And I call poor behaviors because they didn't help you develop as you. And one way of developing well and within yourself and giving you self-esteem and confidence is to if you can't see that your parents don't talk to each other, well, that's a real bummer for the child growing. Give you a little example there when shopping. I found there's 2 little boys helping their grandfather. I said, good morning. I was so surprised. Good morning, madam. How are you? And I thought, and this is 2 Fijian boys. I mean, I haven't engaged kids in a long time. I said, good to see you helping your grandfather. How much is he paying you? Oh, not much. But grandpa turned around and said, oh, no, they're getting $10 for the day. I said, good, no child labor here. And they thought it was so hilarious. And I thought, there you go. And they spoke beautifully, these 2 young boys. They would have been around 10 and 8. There you
right.
go. So slowly it's changing. I'm
Yeah, and,
hopeful, too. I'm really hopeful.
and it's a really good sign of things to come. Like if we're being really honest there, because
Yeah.
it not only just helps with that, but it also helps with a lot of issues when they become older. Because yeah, communication really, it's really the basis of understanding. So if you're unable to understand someone, difficult to coexist with them. Yeah, and
And I'm not saying that if we don't speak English, we're not intelligent.
right, right,
I'm not saying that, because these kids spoke good English, they showed. It's just that when we were growing up, we were told to always speak in English, even though we were fluent in Tongan and Fijian. And I always so regretted that, because trying to now catch up with my Tongan, but it's the fact that these 2 kids spoke such lovely English with their grandfather who was there, will help them in school, because our schools still promote, as you know,
right.
proper grammar, tense, sentence structure, all of these things where English is concerned, the language of English. I'm sure if we did it in our Fijian language, and as Paul Garrity has been promoting, we'd do very well.
We would, yeah, yeah. And
Now,
yeah,
Tony, do you think that because, just something just struck me the fact that we practice the culture of silence. I don't know whether you speak Fijian a lot or you speak English, which one you choose, eh? We grew up in a house that spoke Tongan, Fijian, and then we had to speak English. I feel like from a psychological perspective, just got too fatigued, tired, so we just climbed up. Could never play some into why culture, because remember the colonial influence in our life, and everyone had to speak English, but it got so tiring. It's very fatiguing.
Yeah, it is. It is. I grew up sort of in a similar sort of way. My mom was always very, she was always very she was always an advocate for us being able to speak proper English. And yeah, but at the same time, we also maintained our close ties with the culture, and a lot for our siblings speaking Fijian. It sort of came naturally, and it was a good thing. But I think at some point, like you mentioned, it's hard because you had to sort of had like a certain, like a stereotype or a theme that you had to sort of adopt, like this moniker that you had to adopt whenever you were placed in certain situations,
Yes.
like
Yes.
in terms of the community. So I feel like a lot of young people, they sort of experience the same thing. Like they have to act a certain type of way at work, and then they have to act a certain type of way at home. They have to communicate a certain type of way at home and then at work,
And
and
it's
then
so
with their
fatiguing
friends. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
from a psychological perspective. Why can't we model the behavior of just being who we are
Mm,
when we
mm.
choose? We don't have to have different behaviors for different things. Just be. Chun, are you okay?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I had to sense a light went off. Yeah.
Everything has happened.
So, yeah, that is true. I think
I never
there's,
thought about it, I was just funny how we're just having this conversation. I thought, why is it that we don't say much? I mean, my father was a classic example. He'd just have a smile on his face. He'd never say very much. And as I look back, why? Why bother? You carry so much inside of you. You need to process it.
right.
And one way he used to process his angst and his pain, music, the guitar, mandolin. That was one way my father would do it. But see, many others don't do it in that positive way.
And I think it's the reason why we have jobs. The reason why we have work is because, a lot of people, they sort of tend to go towards the more negative side of trying to deal with things, and trying to have that. There's always this sense of, um, despair with a lot of people, especially when it comes to dealing with that sort of thing.
Yes.
So yeah,
But
yeah,
when there's pain, there's anger, despair, hurt, I always find that it's very fatiguing working with
mm,
people who
mm,
carry all these emotions. I generally, I would say, you look like you're carrying all of this and I can't help you unless you unload. Only you can do that. And if you don't unload, there's all of these other aspects you have to consider. Like getting sick, your organs will have to absorb that stress, anger, that emotion. Because trying to go somewhere internally. And I found that at the hospital, working there for 6 years. And now you just wanted to talk about pain and anger. But you needed someone with empathy who is able to be a good listener, but not absorb it and still study. And that
Right.
takes skill.
It does. It does. And it requires a lot of ability to be able to reframe certain things. And
Much,
Mhm.
much more. And just to get that shift,
Right.
I'll just give you an example. 70-year-old alcoholic, mad with the world, so angry, blames everybody. I walk into his life thinking, imagine being this age and looking like this. I said exactly that to him. This is what you look like to me. And how tragedy. You're still alive. And this is the picture of you as I see it. He was completely dumping. Because I thought, all your life in this state, this is why you're in. And you have the power to change that. Just by telling yourself you want a different type of life, you have to change it here. Because a lot of people think that they can, but someone else will do it. It don't work that way.
Yeah, yeah. We had this conversation with Sophia, who was our secretary before.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Sophia. Yeah. So Sophia, we had this conversation, and we were talking about the role of the client and the role of the therapist. And a lot of times people don't really, there's sort of a misunderstanding or lack of awareness, yeah, in that whole idea of change. Like,
Oh,
yeah, the role of the therapist is not to like be the one that makes you change. The one that makes you change is actually yourself. Yeah,
that's right, Johnny.
yeah,
If you can get, you're already halfway there to recovery and healing.
mm,
Because you don't make a change in your behavior, your feeling, and yet you want to be happy, but you wake up sad every morning. How's that working out for you?
right.
You have to make the effort to look at the good things, the blessings, and that's where gratefulness, gratitude come into. It's so simple. Just waking up. I mean, in my age now, I wriggle my toes and I say, thank you, God, I'm still alive.
Yeah, yeah,
You wake up morning.
yeah. And that's, I think that's that also goes well with a lot of things, like the act of being mindful. Yeah, the act of being mindful and being aware of the
Present.
things that are, yeah, present in the present time. Because a lot of things, and I always go back to the analogy of the book that the example of the book that's placed in your face. Yeah. So if you are if you're going through problems, or if you're going through something, you have, if you're just holding on to that problem and you're not really attempting to make a move on it, or if you're grabbing too tight on it, what happens is that you're failing to notice all the good things that are happening around. Yeah. And if you
And
try to push it away too fast, it's also the same thing. You're always focusing on the problem. You're not looking around to see that there's some good things that you can be thankful for. And
yeah,
yeah,
so true, Tony. I think that's half the problem with a lot of us because our default system, and in a relationship, it's always what's wrong.
right,
We
right.
Our default system goes to what's what's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And if we start changing our conversation and the words we use just by saying things like, it's so wonderful to see this is happening or that's happening. even though it's something that's so mundane and should happen every day,
Mm.
because this person is doing it, it's like, well, you know, when you compliment someone, you can always tell a person who's happy, easygoing, really comfortable inside their skin. When you compliment them, they, oh, thank you. And they give you a compliment.
Right.
But generally, when you compliment a person, oh, really? Oh, gee. It's not like, thank you, I embrace it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so I think it's really weird how having receiving compliments is sort of out of the norm, but
Oh,
receiving criticism or
everyone likes to go to the wrong side, never the
yeah,
right
yeah,
side.
yeah,
Or when someone doesn't respond or something, it's not because they don't like you or they just, hey, hang on a minute, they're busy. They'll
mm,
respond when like for emails or phone calls. I just get so over that. And I'm thinking, people get along.
yeah, yeah. I think it's sort
This,
of made it the social media age now sort of made it that problem more of an issue. Yeah.
there's so much noise.
Mm, mm,
Brain doesn't have time to be peaceful
right, right.
and be kind to yourself. The other thing I think is because of our habits, our beliefs, our attitudes, we do a lot of stuff unconsciously, getting to what we talk about being present and mindful,
Yeah.
conscious. You've had the whole of me for the last how many minutes? Being here with you, being completely present, not thinking about any other thing, being here with you right through. I try
Yeah,
to do that in everything I'm doing
right.
in
Yeah,
life.
and yeah, and I think it's harder for today's generation to sort of do that because everything really is you're distracted with so many things at the touch of your phone. Like really, there's so much. Like I think social media was a good is a good thing to some extent, but also it's never really given us a break. Like to
I,
be
Galen taught me that. She said she detox. She does digital detox from Friday until Sunday, 6 o'clock Friday till Sunday 6. And I started doing it, and I tell you, it is such a good thing. You'll be surprised. Some of the people's responses like, "Where are you? What you doing?" If they don't know that I practice this, so I thought, okay, maybe it's me to tell them from now. Now, when I first started that, I started getting all these question marks. Where are you? And all. Now, no. Because if they don't get a response, they think, okay, what day is it? She's gone. They accept
yeah.
it's the teaching thing.
And I think really a lot of people just need a little quiet in their lives too. Yeah.
Very much. It's precious. There is a saying, there's a reason why silence is golden.
If I were to go back to when I was a kid, when I was a child and we didn't have phones, like when we were there and being with each other, we've been so molded and we've been so, say, programmed by how social media is today and how this digital lifestyle that imagining what it was like or that young boy that was 8 years old running around and just being there in every moment. It's so foreign as compared to now, and I think that's a sad. It's a sad thing because yeah, because
It is, Charlie.
we should value every moment for what it is rather than what you can make of it with technology.
Yeah, it's ruining a lot of people's lives and relationships.
Mm.
My grandsons, Andre is now 12, and the youngest he is Zappa. None of them have had phones ever. It's just not a dumb thing. They're involved in sports. They're involved in chores. They read books. They go to the library. These four boys, even my siblings all say they're odd because they don't actually sit at the table and go communicate with everybody who's at the table. And I go, what we were brought up doing. So
Yeah,
why did
yeah,
I don't want to see that change? And thank God that my son and my daughter-in-law have constantly been very consistent right throughout the four boys' lives. Same with young Noah. No phones. No phone. Go do things. Find things to do. Read a book. Kids read books.
oh man, it's I think they do exist, but it's probably like
They're rare.
they're very minimum. Yeah, they're very rare. They're very rare. And I had this conversation with one of my nephews. He sort of asked me what we used to do back when we were young.
Right.
Yeah, and he's about 8 or 9 at the time I had the conversation with him, and then he found it really crazy that we didn't have like gadgets back then, that we would go out and actually play sports, because we always had like touch and something. There was always like pani or something going on, and then we would always just, that's how we connected as kids. And then as soon as we see the street light go dim or the street light turn on, that's when we knew we had to be home.
Time to go home. I know
Yeah,
exactly. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And we would just sit around like talking all day, and kids nowadays, I don't think they have it. Now, there may be some that do, but a lot of the majority don't experience that. Yeah.
No, Chone, we found that out in our child violence project that we did. We amuse themselves. They don't have very many parent intervention. They're left on their own. Both parents are working, or one single parent, grandparent. And I don't think it's fair for grandparents to bring up children that done their time, their bed. Kids bring up their own children. That's what I say to my son.
Hmm.
You bring up your own child. I'll do some babysitting, but gee, I have a lot. And I think it's healthy. They do that. You know, they do practice it. And lovely story about your growing up in your childhood. I remember
Yeah.
Sundays for us, because lots of family. I come from a very large family. Cousins. Always some cousins at home with us because of going to school. And, you know, we'd sit around on Sunday evenings after the day is done and listen to our favorite serial on the radio.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Playing, we will be busy working, always doing something. Imagine us to sit and look at our phone. And still, I don't do it now. I find it's a disturbance, but it's a means of getting work done, I suppose. We need it. And look at what we're doing now, you and I, children, on a laptop. Who would have
Yeah.
thought that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are some positives of like this whole technological uh, revolution and everything, but I mean, I still would like to imagine what things would be like if we were back to when we used to connect.
We can create it, or is it a utopia?
That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah. You saw. Are we?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I have to end up. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ofa, for your time. I'm so sorry.
Oh
I
my
think you
gosh,
went
Connie,
over the
you and I
time.
just talked and talked and talked.
Oh man,
Lovely. Hey, listen, can I ask you something about your program before you finish?
Sure. Yeah.
You have mentors? Do you have a coach? Do you have somebody there that you can go to if you need help immediately and stuff like that?
Yes, we do. We do have the support programs here really good. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. And listen, if you ever run into Tracy Westerman, go talk to her.
Okay. Sure. Is she but
Yeah, she should be
Tracy
there.
West?
Tracy Westerman,
Okay, sure. I will.
professor,
Yeah.
PhD professor. She works with Indigenous people.
Oh, she's up in then she's up in Bunbury then. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
she's north of the river, yeah.
I know Bunbury very well. My first
Right.
husband was from there.
Oh, sorry I brought it up.
That's it. Look at what you just did then. You apologize. Silly. Fine. I have a
Oh,
beautiful son from my first marriage.
oh, that's good. Uh, well,
Yeah.
sorry. It's just habit does it.
Too fun. You see what I mean? We talked about habits.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see our little quirks or little behaviors that we have.
Right.
Yeah. No, and you've been conscious of it now, Tony.
Yeah.
Being
And
mindful.
that's a good thing. Yeah. Good thing.
So
Yeah.
don't be sorry. I had a really very short wedding and short marriage. Had a beautiful son from it. See you later. Going back to domestic violence and all of that stuff. Chose the higher road.
Right.
No.
So Ofa, just one question for our viewers, just one last question. In your work and in the work that you do as a community psychologist, what would be your advice to the average listener that's listening right now? Like if they were going through something or if they were finding difficulty in some sort of transition, what would be your advice to them?
Find someone you trust and respect. Share your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, knowing full well you will be judged. Because half the time we share things because we're so afraid we're judged. So if you find someone who loves you unconditionally, cares for you unconditionally, share what's going through your life, because know this, whatever it is, it will pass. It's not going to be there, and it's meant to happen in your life so that you know these are some of the things that are events that occur, episodes in my life, I need to address. And if you can address it, sharing it with someone you love or loves you unconditionally without being a judge, you will find the answers. There's always an answer to everything we go through in life. That's what I've, and you have the answer. It's just talking about it to someone else that helps you see that answer, which is waiting. It just needs to be shared. Talk about it. Don't keep it inside you, because when you keep things inside you, it festers and it never gets addressed. That's how I would deal with whatever it is you're going through. It's to be addressed.
Right. Thank you so much, Opa. Those are beautiful words from one of our pioneering members. Thank you so much, Opa. And to our viewers, if you are interested in contacting the society, you can follow the link that's going to be below. Thank you again, Opa. It was amazing to have you on our show today, having this pioneering show. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tone. Keep up the great work. You're doing wonderful things, and you warm the cockles of my heart, because I know Fiji Psychology is in good hands in the future. God bless you.
Thank you.
Ni more than Manda.
So you can catch us next week on our next show. So everyone.
And Manda.